Welcome, history explorers, to the most in-depth documentary you will ever watch on one of the most misunderstood figures in all of human history. This isn't the Cleopatra you think you know from movies or memes, the seductive queen who supposedly destroyed men with a single glance. No, this is the real Cleopatra VII Theophilopator, the last true pharaoh of Egypt, a master strategist, a genius polyglot who spoke 9 languages, a woman who fought tooth and nail for her people's freedom in a world dominated by Roman eagles and Greek arrogance. She ruled for 21 years, kept Egypt independent and prosperous against impossible odds, and died on her own terms rather than be paraded through the streets of Rome like a trophy. If you're an American viewer, think of her story like this. Imagine the American Revolution, but instead of George Washington, it's a brilliant young queen standing alone against the greatest superpower the ancient world had ever seen. She used intelligence, diplomacy, alliances, and sheer willpower to protect her nation's sovereignty, just like the founding fathers dreamed of liberty. But her fight ended in tragedy, and her story was written by the victors. Today, we're setting the record straight. We're going long, over 3 hours of pure historical deep dive because Cleopatra's life deserves it. We'll walk the marble streets of Alexandria with her, sit in war councils with Julius Caesar, sail on golden barges with Mark Antony, and stand on the deck at the Battle of Actium as the fate of the Mediterranean hangs in the balance. If you love epic real-life drama that feels like Game of Thrones mixed with House of the Dragon but grounded in actual ancient sources, Plutarch, Cassius Dio, Strabo, and the latest archaeological discoveries, then smash that like button right now, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Let's begin. Picture this. The year is 69 BC. The Mediterranean is a boiling pot of empires. Rome has crushed Carthage, swallowed Greece, and is eyeing the wealthy kingdom of Egypt like a hungry wolf. Alexandria, Egypt's capital, is the undisputed crown jewel of the ancient world. Founded by Alexander the Great in 331 BC, it's a planned metropolis of wide boulevards, marble colonnades, and towering monuments that make modern cities look small. The Pharaoh's lighthouse, one of the 7 wonders, rises over 350 feet into the sky, its mirror reflecting firelight that can be seen 30 miles out at sea. Ships from every corner of the known world dock here, grain from the Nile, papyrus scrolls, spices from Arabia, silk from distant China via caravan routes. At the heart of it all stands the Great Library of Alexandria and its sister institution, the Mausoleum, the world's first true research university. Up to 700,000 papyrus scrolls line its shelves. Scholars from Greece, Judea, Persia, and Egypt debate philosophy, astronomy, mathematics, and medicine. Euclid wrote his geometry here. Eratosthenes calculated the circumference of the Earth here with shocking accuracy. This is the Silicon Valley of the ancient world, and it's where our story begins. Cleopatra VII is born in late 69 BC inside the royal palace complex, a sprawling labyrinth of gardens, fountains, temples to Isis and Serapis, and private harbors. Her father is Ptolemy XII Auletes, the Piper, a flute-playing king whose weak rule has turned Egypt into a virtual Roman protectorate. The Ptolemaic dynasty, descendants of Ptolemy I Soter, one of Alexander the Great's top generals, have ruled Egypt for nearly 250 years. They are Macedonian Greeks who never fully integrated with the native Egyptian population. To keep power, they practiced sibling marriages so often that family trees look like tangled vines. Cleopatra's mother is almost certainly Cleopatra V Tryphena, her father's sister. Yes, incest was royal policy, a way to keep the pure Macedonian bloodline intact and prevent outsiders from claiming the throne. From the moment she draws her first breath, Cleopatra is different. While her older siblings and previous Ptolemaic rulers proudly spoke only Greek and sneered at barbarian Egyptian ways, the young princess demands to learn the language of her people. She becomes the first Ptolemy in history to speak fluent Egyptian, the ancient tongue of the pharaohs, used in temple rituals and by the farmers along the Nile. She doesn't stop there. She masters Latin so she can read Roman dispatches and eavesdrop on their ambassadors. Hebrew and Aramaic for dealings with Judean merchants and priests. Persian for the Parthian envoys who control the eastern trade routes. Ancient writers say she learned at least 9 languages total. Plutarch later wrote that her voice was like a many-stringed instrument, melodic, persuasive, impossible to ignore. Her education is relentless. In the Maushian's lecture halls, she studies under the greatest minds alive. She reads Homer in the original Greek, Plato's philosophy, Aristotle's politics. She learns astronomy so she can predict Nile floods, the lifeblood of Egyptian agriculture. She studies medicine, economics, military strategy, and even early chemistry, what they called alchemy. She understands that in a world of shifting alliances, knowledge is the ultimate weapon. But childhood is no fairy tale. The palace is a nest of vipers. Her father's rule is disastrous. He raises taxes to pay massive bribes and tributes to Rome just to stay on the throne. In 58 BC, when Cleopatra is about 11 years old, the people of Alexandria riot. Ptolemy XII flees to Rome with his young daughter at his side. They live in exile for years, begging in the corridors of power. Cleopatra watches Roman senators, men like Pompey and Crassus, living in obscene luxury while plotting assassinations and conquests. She sees how Rome's republic is rotting from within: corruption, debt, ambitious generals with private armies. She learns the most important lesson of her life. Egypt will survive only by tying its fate to the single strongest man in Rome at any given moment. In 55 BC, with Roman legion's help, her father is restored. Her older sister, Berenice IV, who had seized the throne, is executed. Cleopatra, now a teenager, is named co-heir. She begins sitting in on council meetings, watching how fragile power truly is. Her father dies in 51 BC. Cleopatra is 18. The throne is hers, but not alone. Ptolemaic law and her father's will demand she co-rule with her 10-year-old brother Ptolemy XIII and marry him in name only. It's the same old dynastic tradition. At first, she dominates. She issues decrees solely in her own name. She cuts taxes to win the love of the Egyptian people and the powerful priesthood. She restores temples, participates in sacred festivals as the living embodiment of Isis, new Isis she calls herself. She reorganizes the army, bringing in loyal mercenaries. For a brief moment, Egypt breathes easier under a young queen who actually cares about her subjects. But her brother's regents, the eunuch Pothinus and the general Achilles, hate sharing power with a woman. In 49 BC, they stage a coup. Cleopatra is forced to flee Alexandria with only a handful of loyal guards. She crosses the desert into Syria, where she begins the dangerous work of raising an army. She recruits mercenaries, forges alliances with local chieftains, and prepares for civil war. At 21 years old, she is already a battle-hardened leader. Meanwhile, Rome's own civil war explodes. Julius Caesar defeats Pompey at Pharsalus. Pompey flees to Egypt hoping for sanctuary. Instead, Ptolemy XIII's advisors murder him on the beach at Pelusium, chopping off his head and presenting it to Caesar as a gift. They expect gratitude, they get fury. Caesar arrives in Alexandria with 4,000 men and demands the royal siblings appear before him to settle their dispute once and for all. Cleopatra sees her opening. It is one of the boldest moves in history. Dramatic pause, music swells, visual, nighttime Alexandria, torchlight flickering on the palace walls. She orders her most trusted servant to roll her inside a thick linen carpet, or, according to some accounts, a large sack used for bedding. They carry her straight through the Roman guards and into Caesar's private quarters. When the carpet is unrolled at the conqueror's feet, out steps the 21-year-old queen. Poised, intelligent, speaking perfect Latin, eyes flashing with royal authority. She does not beg. She negotiates as an equal. Caesar is 52, bald, epileptic, and the most powerful man alive. Yet he is charmed. Cleopatra offers everything he needs. Egypt's endless grain to feed his legions, its gold to pay his soldiers, its fleet to support his campaigns. She promises loyalty if he restores her to the throne. Caesar agrees. War erupts inside Alexandria. The palace becomes a battlefield. Cleopatra and Caesar fight side by side as Ptolemy XIII's forces besiege them. In the end, Caesar's reinforcements arrive. Ptolemy XIII flees across the Nile and drowns when his armored cloak pulls him under. Cleopatra is queen again. In 47 BC, she gives birth to a son, Ptolemy XV, Caesarion. She boldly claims he is Caesar's child. The boy becomes a living political talisman, proof of the alliance between Egypt and Rome's greatest general. To satisfy tradition, she enters another nominal marriage with her even younger brother, Ptolemy XIV. In practice, she rules alone. She sails with Caesar up the Nile in a royal barge, showing him the wonders of Egypt, the pyramids, the temples, the fertile black soil that feeds half the Mediterranean. For a few months, she experiences something close to peace. But Caesar must return to Rome. He is assassinated on the Ides of March, 44 BC. Cleopatra acts instantly. She removes Ptolemy XIV, historians suspect poison, and elevates 3-year-old Caesarion as co-ruler. Egypt's future now rests on her shoulders alone. After Caesar's death, Rome fractures into the second triumvirate, Octavian, Lepidus, and Mark Antony. Antony, the rugged soldier who once served under Caesar, takes the wealthy east. He needs Egypt's resources desperately for his planned invasion of Parthia, Rome's old enemy to the east. In 41 BC, he summons Cleopatra to Tarsus in modern-day Turkey. She does not come as a summoned vassal. She arrives like a goddess. Her barge sails up the river Cydnus in a spectacle designed to dazzle. Purple sails billow in the wind. The deck is covered in gold and silver. Boys dressed as cupids fan her with ostrich plumes. Female attendants costumed as sea nymphs play music. Incense clouds the air with myrrh and cinnamon. Cleopatra herself reclines under a canopy, dressed as Venus, the Roman goddess of love, in flowing silk and jewels that catch the sunlight. Antony, waiting on the riverbank with his troops, is stunned. The entire city turns out to watch. The queen has turned a summons into a coronation parade. Their meeting is pure political theater and pure chemistry. Antony is 40, a celebrated general, known for his bravery, his drinking, and his loyalty to Caesar. Cleopatra is 28 at the height of her intellectual and diplomatic powers. They spend days in banquets that last from noon until dawn. She teases him, debates him, and offers him exactly what he needs: grain ships, warships, money, and a secure base in Egypt. In return, Antony promises to protect Egypt's independence, remove her last internal rivals, and return Ptolemaic lands lost over the years. The alliance is sealed. They winter together in Alexandria. The city becomes a playground of power. Hunting parties, philosophical debates, theatrical performances. Cleopatra bears him twins in 40 BC, Alexander Helios and Cleopatra Selene. A third son, Ptolemy Philadelphus, follows in 36 BC. The children are not just personal, they are political bonds tying Egypt to Rome's strongest eastern commander. By 34 BC, at the famous Donations of Alexandria ceremony held in the city's Grand Gymnasium, Antony publicly grants vast territories to Cleopatra and their children. Caesarion is proclaimed King of Kings. The twins receive Armenia, Media, and Parthia, lands not yet conquered but promised. Little Ptolemy gets Phoenicia and Cilicia. Egypt's borders swell to their greatest extent since the days of the old pharaohs. Cleopatra restores temples, reforms the currency, encourages trade with India via the Red Sea, and keeps the Nile's agricultural machine running at full capacity. For her people, these are years of peace and plenty, the last golden age of independent Egypt. But in Rome, Octavian watches with cold fury. He is Caesar's adopted heir, a master propagandist. He paints Antony as a traitor who has gone native, seduced by an evil foreign queen who wants to move the capital of the empire to Alexandria and rule over Romans as slaves. Roman poets and orators spread vicious lies. Cleopatra is a whore, a sorceress, a drunkard who uses magic potions. Octavian's sister, Octavia, Antony's legal Roman wife, is portrayed as the virtuous victim. Public opinion in Italy turns against Antony. In 32 BC, the Roman Senate declares war, not on Antony, but officially on Cleopatra, framing it as Rome versus the dangerous Queen of the East. The stage is set for the final confrontation. The naval battle of Actium in 31 BC is one of the most decisive moments in world history. Octavian's fleet, commanded by the brilliant Agrippa, traps the combined Antony-Cleopatra armada in a bay on the western coast of Greece. Supplies run low. Disease spreads. Morale collapses. On September 2, Cleopatra orders her squadron to break through the enemy line at all costs. Her ships, lighter, faster, designed for the open sea, slice through. Antony, seeing her purple sails heading to safety, abandons the main battle and follows her. The rest of their fleet is destroyed or surrenders. It is a crushing defeat, though not total annihilation. The lovers retreat to Alexandria. For months, they prepare for the final siege. They throw extravagant parties, almost as if daring fate. In private, they plan escape routes, perhaps to India via the Red Sea. But Octavian's army marches relentlessly. In 30 BC, Octavian reaches the gates of Alexandria. Antony leads one last cavalry charge and wins a small victory, but it is meaningless. False rumors reach him that Cleopatra has already killed herself. In despair, he falls on his sword. Mortally wounded, he is carried to her mausoleum. She lowers him through a window with ropes. They share final moments together. Antony dies in her arms. Cleopatra, now 39, faces the end with the same courage that defined her life. Octavian wants her alive, to parade her through Rome in chains, a living symbol of his triumph. She refuses. According to the ancient accounts, she has a small basket of figs delivered to her chamber. Hidden inside is an ASP, the sacred Egyptian cobra. She presses the snake to her breast. The venom works quickly. She dies on her own terms, dressed in full royal regalia, requesting only to be buried beside Antony. Octavian grants the burial wish, but executes Caesarion to eliminate any future threat. The boy, only 17, is hunted down and killed. Egypt ceases to exist as an independent kingdom. It becomes the personal property of the Roman emperor, the richest province in the empire, feeding Rome's millions with its grain. Cleopatra was not a femme fatale. She was a brilliant administrator who brought peace and prosperity to Egypt for over 2 decades. She was the only Ptolemaic ruler who bothered to learn Egyptian, who honored the native gods, who put her people's interests above Greek elitism. She used every tool, language, intellect, charm, alliances, even motherhood, to keep her country free. Her story was twisted by Roman propaganda because she dared challenge the empire. Shakespeare later romanticized her. Hollywood turned her into a sex symbol. But the real woman was far more impressive, a polymath queen who negotiated with the most powerful men of her age as an equal. For American audiences, her lesson is timeless. She fought for sovereignty against overwhelming odds, much like the American colonies declared independence from the British Empire. She showed that intelligence and adaptability can outlast raw military power. She proved that a woman could rule, strategize, and inspire loyalty in a man's world. Her children's fates tell the rest of the story. Her daughter, Cleopatra Selene, married the king of Mauritania and continued a line that may have influenced later North African royalty. The Ptolemaic blood eventually faded, but Cleopatra's legend never did. She lived up to the title Pharaoh, protector of Egypt, guardian of the 2 lands. She died at 39, but she has never truly left us. Every time we watch a strong leader stand against empire, every time a woman shatters glass ceilings through sheer intellect, we see a fragment of Cleopatra VII. What do you think? Was she history's greatest strategist or a tragic victim of Roman spin? Drop your thoughts in the comments. If this 3-hour deep dive moved you, like, subscribe, share with your history-loving friends, and check the description for sources, maps, and bonus behind-the-scenes content. Next month, we tackle another forgotten powerhouse of the ancient world. Until then, remember, true power isn't in the sword. It's in the mind that wields it. Thank you for watching. History lives here.